Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining our webinar. My name is Kartika and I'm from LeadSquared's marketing team. Hello, hi, thank you again for joining us. Today we will be discussing, actually, we'll be decoding the used car industry landscape in India. Joining me today are our speakers. We have Mr. Rohit, who is the head of product operations and process excellence at OLX Autos. We also have Mr. Archit Mahajan, who is the regional sales manager here at LeadSquared. Thank you, Rohit. Thank you so much, Archit, for joining us today and for giving us your time. But yes, before we get to know the speakers a little bit more, I have a few pointers to the audience. Towards the right side corner of your screen, you'll see a few options. There is an option to put up all the questions you have. If you have any during the webinar, please to put it up there. Our experts will take it up. We also have the chat tab where you can network a little bit, talk to our speakers a little bit, and we also will be putting up a couple of polls during the webinar. Please do respond to them. We would absolutely love to hear from you. That is it from our side. Looking forward for a wonderful session. So, with that, Archit, I'm going to hand the session over to you.
Thank you so much, Kartika, for the warm welcome, and to everyone who has joined. I hope you found this session, quite fruitful and insightful with Rohit coming onto the picture. Rohit, why don't you just start with a quick introduction about yourself first?
Sure. Thanks, Kartika, for extending out this invitation, and thanks, Achyut, for the overall coordination. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this conversation. Uh, I'll just give a quick introduction of myself. I am Rohit. I'm heading the product ops and process excellence vertical here at OLX Autos. I've been a part of OLX Autos since 2019, wherein I had joined as a city head for the Bangalore operations and went on to handle the zonal operations for South Zone, which includes cities of Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and we set up new cities like Kochi and Mysuru later on. So that's a quick brief about my stint here at OLX Autos. Prior to this, I had started off my career with Tata Motors as a robotics and automation engineer, and so I've seen the other side of the automotive market, which is on the manufacturing side, where we manufacture the vehicles. So I was in the heavy and commercial vehicle industry, part of Tata Motors, and I have seen the entire life cycle of how the automobile is manufactured. And now I'm on the other side where we are looking at the sales of the used car market. So that entire spectrum is something that has been quite interesting. Post my MBA, I've mostly worked around e-commerce and tech-enabled operations. I've worked with Snapdeal as a category manager, have seen the world of e-commerce, and took a deep interest in how we can use technology to enable operations on the ground. And even worked with Altisource as a product manager, looking at that a bit deeper onto the tech side of the things. So with that, I've got enough experience on both the operations and the technology side of the industry. So yeah, that's a quick brief about myself.
I think that is really insightful. I think my follow-up question to this, Rohit, would be: I think we've spent a lot of time in the automotive industry, and personally, I mean, for me, or let's say for a country as a whole, automotive industry is a great indicator of how a country is performing. And at a personal note, every aspirations of a Indian common man is linked to somewhere to the automotive industry. Whether you are kind of buying your first bicycle, first scooter, first car, it is always very special. And I think in the last few years that I have been kind of following this industry, the growth at which this industry, be it the new automotive or the used car, is growing is actually fantastic. So just want to understand, what is it that attracted you to the automotive industry, and from the time since you kind of were with Tata Motors to your current tenure with OLX, how do you see this industry has changed and evolved?
Right. So the primary interest when I started off my career here was I've always had an interest towards automobiles from quite a long time. And in some way or the other, have been taking a lot of interest in the automotive industry per se, about the latest cars that are coming out, even for that matter, two-wheelers and bikes. Of my workspace, I'm also an avid biker and love driving and traveling. So that interest has always been there on the automotive side. And then that marries to my technical interest in automation and technology. And when I got this opportunity at Automotive, to wherein I could be working on the operations as well as the tech side of it, that's where my whole journey with it began. So the initial part was primarily more about understanding the back end of it, how the manufacturing works. Uh, I was managing a shop floor with around 70 robots, and those were the first of its kind robots which are used for manufacturing bodies or the truck bodies at the Jamshedpur plant for Tata Motors. And I took deeper interest in the technology behind the whole operation set, on understanding how these operations are streamlined, how cars are manufactured, the logistics around the entire the sourcing of the components, and then selling those trucks out into the market. Uh, Post my experience in e-commerce, I also got a good experience and taste of the sales side of the things, not just from the operations perspective, but now from the sales side of things, on how big an impact technology can make, or let us say in the B2C segment, wherein we are reaching out to a large set of consumers, large set of customers. With the help of technology, we're able to sell products and services. So in the e-commerce space, we were selling products. Here, we are trading in used cars, but it's primarily a service that we are providing, which is inspecting your car and getting a report of that, and then moving on to selling the whole car itself and enabling that transaction. So this has been quite an interesting ride, especially uh, this market being a nascent one, where we have a lot of problems to solve for in the market, because we are still growing and there are a lot of new challenges up there when it comes to connecting a used car buyer and a used car seller. And there are multiple use cases. And with time, and I think right now we have the right tools and tools available in the market to ensure that this transaction is happening with more and more technology enabled in it. So this again piques my interest more, and that's where I also moved into more on the tech side of the things, where I'm enabling these technology for these operations to be running faster and in a more automated manner.
Interesting and quite insightful. I think I can resonate with it. I recently sold a car, and I could see the difference in which it is was kind of done earlier to watch how players like you are kind of changing the consumer behavior. So, what in your opinion, Rohit, is something that you would say? How is the consumer trend changing specifically for the used car market? What sort of growth indicators are there? Let's say 5 years down the line that you see, and some key metrics that you feel will help drive growth for this industry, in your opinion?
Sure. So a few things. One is if we look at the overall and industry itself, the used car industry, the last few years have seen a phenomenal growth, and there are various factors which have been influencing this. It's not just about the demand and the changing consumer preference towards personal mobility, but also the fact that now we have better internet connectivity, better technologies available for people to access and know and understand about used cars and then make the right choice. Unlike the earlier times when people had to step out of their homes, go to multiple showrooms, check out the cars, we now have a plethora of technology available out with us for a consumer to make the right decision sitting at his home, at their home. So, if you talk about how it has changed in terms of the consumer trend, yes, uh, the new car market itself has shown a lot of growth in the initial decade that we have seen, and we have seen a lot of players coming into the Indian market post the liberalization era. Now we have some really global standard manufacturing happening within India, and the homegrown players have been doing good. Players like Maruti, Tata, Mahindra, they have really grown well, and the quality of the cars that they're producing are at par with the global scale. So one of the first parts that we solved was getting that ecosystem ready, getting that supply done in the market for new cars, for new car OEMs to come into the picture, and the sales of new cars to grow. The last few years and the coming few years will see a spurt or a big growth on the used car market, used car side, wherein we'll see a larger growth or larger CAGR of growth in terms of the number of used cars being sold. Uh, a major trend, if you ask me right now, used car sales are more than new car sales. Starting, if I give you some numbers, the CAGR for a used car currently is at around 6%, while for the new car it's actually going down on the other hand. And this again is expected to move towards upwards of 12 to 15% for used car, while new cars might just continue to grow at 5 to 6%.
Any particular reason that you feel is the reason behind this? Because I have been also kind of studying, and I think the way it is growing, numbers that you mentioned are very correct. Any particular reason that you feel are driving this growth?
So if you ask me about some of the prime drivers of growth, of course, the way the Indian economy is shaping up, the disposable income is growing up, and more the per capita GDP also growing up. More and more people are able to afford the cars. Of course, which I'll come to later, the impact of COVID has also been there on personal mobility. Um, People, there has been a lot of demand being driven from non-metros. So even as on date, while 35% of the supply is coming in from metro for used cars, 60% of demand is being driven by the non-metro, the smaller towns. So there's a lot of movement of used cars that are happening in the metros towards non-metros. People in the metros with a higher disposable income are moving up the ladder, getting newer cars, while the older ones are getting sold down into the down market. And the consumers out there are aspirational. They don't want a cheap car. And I think one of the good use cases we have is of Tata Motors when they had launched Nano. One of the reasons it couldn't scale up to the levels it was supposed to was that people were not looking for a cheap car. They still had their aspirations intact. And for 1 lakh, they might rather go for a higher end used car rather than going for a lower end, smaller new car. So that aspiration was one of the prime drivers. Of course, personal mobility and the lack of public transport in most of the major cities, those also have been contributing factors, uh, which have led to the use or the increase in sales for used car. And this will continue in the next 5 years also, and where we'll see a lot of involvement of the organized player. So on the supply side of things, uh, the share of organized players, these are dealerships who are operating out of showrooms or marketplace ecosystems. They will keep increasing, and this their share will be almost 50% when it comes to the used car market itself. And with the help of technology, they'll be able to sell and reach out to more people. So that is what is happening right now in terms of the change drivers in the ecosystem.
Great, great. I think one point that you mentioned, I was also kind of come to that only. I think COVID has kind of changed the way we used to kind of
Right.
do all our day-to-day operations, and I'm pretty sure, the automotive industry would have been also impacted due to this. And after your experience, I think you have almost spent 4 years in OLX now.
Right.
What do you think has changed? Pre-COVID, post-COVID, how has the customer expectations, behavior, and all those things changed for you?
Right. So, COVID definitely was an eye opener in with respect to how the consumer behavior entirely changed. Uh, I still remember how we were looking at pivoting our operating model at the time of COVID. Before COVID, people used to prefer a lot of, they used to drop by our store and get the car inspected, and we used to make those inspections there and do the transaction at the store itself. Post COVID, obviously mobility reduced, and there was a high preference for people to get their car inspected at home. So from a 90 to 95% of store operating model, we moved to a model which is almost 100% home inspections. Now everybody wants the car to be inspected at their home. So now we are there at the customer doorstep, evaluating the car and then getting it sold. That is one of the bigger changes that has happened. Secondly, obviously with the initial wave of COVID that we saw, people wanted to move away from I would say mass transit or public transport. They wanted that shield, and the car became an extension of their home. What they're when they felt safer inside their home, they wanted the same feeling when they're getting out, and that's where the need for mobility through a car came in, and that became one of the primary drivers for them to look out. But yes, COVID definitely also had an impact on the disposable income, and that also made them to look into short-term solution for solving that problem. And that's where the used car market came into the picture, and people wanted to test that out. So a lot of I would say the used car segment first-time customers, and I would say almost 70% of them before their first used car, they were owning a two-wheeler. So there's been a lot of movement in terms of the segment itself, wherein uh, a lot of two-wheeler customers moved on to a used car as one of the first four-wheelers that they got into. Though even today, the larger chunk of Indian automobiles is primarily dominated by two-wheelers, the slow gradual shift is happening. Of course, there are various factors at play, but that shift is slowly showing. One point I wanted to put across over here is again, for the market per se, for the Indian market, the penetration of vehicle ownership is still quite low. We are somewhere around 2025 cars per people, versus if you look at a matured market like US, where it is 6 to 800 per thousand people, or even for that matter, a market like UK where it is around 200 to 300. We are still quite way behind in that, and there are various factors contributing to that. So, which shows that there is enough space for the market to grow and expand into.
Absolutely. I think rightly mentioned, if we are talking about and comparing ourselves to these countries, I think we have a huge potential. And considering that, India, there's a rising young population as well as the middle class who's now quite aspirational and has certain income to dispose of, I'm pretty sure this industry is going to grow exponentially. So coming to that question, I think talking from a growth perspective, Rohit, how is OLX Autos revolutionizing this space in the Indian market for the audience and for the people out there? Can
Yeah,
you throw some light on that?
yeah. So OLX has been in the classified market for quite some time in India, and the association of the brand with the in the market has been quite deep, and deep to the extent that now we are synonymous. The name OLX is synonymous to selling of anything second hand, and of course, automobiles was one of the largest segments within the business that we were operating in India. Uh, the classified operations, which is what we know as the C2C, consumer to consumer, where you want to sell your car and you put that car out there on the classifieds platform, there will be hundreds of people who might be interested and want to buy, will be reaching out to you. That had its own share of hassles because it was still not solving the complete problem. The complete problem, when I say, it was about getting that transaction done safely and securely, and it had its own share of issues. And when we looked at that, that's where this whole concept of moving the business from just online to an offline model came into the picture. And that's where somewhere around 2017 or so we moved into the offline model. We tried it out in India, wherein we set up stores and said that the transaction can be done over here, which will become a safe center for any seller and buyer to come in and do the transaction. So we had on our side, on one side, we had the entire dealer network of dealers who are basically dealers within that same city, who are participating in an auction on the platform, versus the consumers or the sellers, the retail sellers who are coming to the store to sell their cars. So we are basically a marketplace there, and we set up a marketplace out there, which removed the entire hassle from the seller point of view. So if you want to sell your car, the hassle of going through the entire classifieds listing and then dealing with so many hundreds of people who want to buy that car, the buyers of the car, it's gone. Now you have OLX Autos, which will ensure that we put it into an auction, we get the best price. Getting that price is our job. You get that price, and then you'll get paid instantly, and that car is taken into possession. So it becomes as quick as selling any other product into the market. So the biggest change that we did there was move the consumer mindset towards a quick selling of their car, immediate transaction, and we are able to get that transaction done the very same day itself. And over time, now we have improvised on that from a 100% store inspection model. Now we have moved into a 100% home inspection model, wherein the people come to the home and then they do the inspection, and the entire transaction gets closed over there itself without the customer having a need to step out of their home anymore. And that is how we are looking at overall changing this consumer behavior. We are aligning with the new changed behavior of the consumer, and we are seeing some good growth in the last few years, and we are definitely expecting more growth in the coming years, not just from the industry but for the organization overall as well. To add to this further, as an organization, we are present in multiple geographies, so that also plays into the picture wherein we are able to leverage the learnings and the technology from various markets and improvise further. So we are able to bring in the best of all the worlds into this market and implement it to the Indian market itself. And that is another primary driver for us, enabling our growth within that market.
Great. So I think a lot has changed in the way you were kind of initially looking at
Yeah,
selling the product through the classifieds ads now to a more like a whore or a storm operated model where everyone can come and sell their car. So effectively, the consumer behavior have changed. The strategies and alignment would have changed for OLX autos. How do you feel that it is still a quite an exhaustive process, right? From the moment where someone wants to make an inquiry to sell his car to the time where there are discussions involved where you have to do a lot of documentation transfers and everything. How do you ensure that your selling strategies, your sales cycle, and the customer acquisition cycle is in line with the customer behavior, and any specific tools, processes that you use to ensure that you are connected with customer at every point of time?
right. So as I mentioned, we are heavily on the tech side of operations, and we strongly believe that with technology, with the tech-enabled operations, we should be able to solve problems faster and scale faster as well. And from that lens, when I look into it, there are various uh, areas that we are using technology to solve this problem and make it easier for the consumers itself. First of all, if I look at the whole chain itself, starting from the marketing point of view, wherein we need to ensure that the supply and demand is properly matched. We cannot have a lot of dealers on one side and no customers willing to sell, and vice versa. So a lot of technology is leveraged in terms of looking at the data on what the dealer market wants and what is the availability in the market of cars that is there, and we are able to match that perfectly. So in that sense, we are able to leverage on data and technology to ensure that the dealer demand and the customer who's selling the car is able to match in the right way. But beyond this, we also use leverage a lot of technology in the pricing itself, because uh, the customer is extremely price sensitive, and price is one of the very key factors basis which the car is sold. And having said that, it's important that we are able to provide the right pricing to the customer to avoid subjectivity in this pricing itself. We have data models, and we're leveraging technology, and especially our expertise in this whole classified market. We have a lot of data of consumers who have come to our classifieds platform. Even today, if you ask, almost 70% of the car sales is going through the classifieds platform, which is our OLX classifieds platform. So we do have enough data on the cars being sold in the country, that helps us build that bridge between the dealers and the sellers. Then, of course, we do leverage a lot of technology in, as you mentioned, there are a lot of processes related to documentation, related to how we are reaching out to the customer's home at the nearest or the lowest amount of time, and we are able to maximize our service within a day. We leverage a lot of technology in optimizing our travel routes, in optimizing the overall customer experience itself. Uh, then coming to further, if you we will also look at partnering with agents with others in the market in terms of improving on our technologies. Recently, you must have learned about our partnership with IIT Delhi on looking at a new device which can take pictures of the car, and this is another area that we want to improvise and move ahead faster. Because if we still look at it, a lot of time is consumed in taking the pictures of the car, ensuring that the report is accurate and correct. And if that is automated, and if it is quick, and we are able to understand where the problems are there in the car quickly, we'll be able to get to a right price. So assessing the car, getting the right price, all of these are tied up, and all of these are being driven by the technology that we have. And so these are just some of the areas that we are using technology, and we are technology enabled solutions for us to solve those customer problems that we are trying to solve in the market, and make it a better customer experience when they are coming to sell their car.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's great to hear. I would also want you to kind of tell us a bit about how your customer acquisition cycle looks like.
Right.
How do you manage that, and any specific tools that you use there?
Right, right. So definitely, we are currently using LeadSquare a lot in our current operations and as driving as a CRM, and it's been quite helpful for us in uh, driving our operations from day one when we've been using it. Uh, the customer acquisition cycle, starting from how we are acquiring the customers from the market using multiple various or multiple marketing channels, and then that funnel gets fed into the CRM, which in this case for us is LeadSquare, and the entire journey of that customer, how we are managing it through LeadSquare, has been quite seamless, and it has immensely helped us in various manners. For example, in the entire customer life cycle, we do have a lot of needs. For example, we need to understand what kind of communications happened with the customer before, what has been the lead journey, what all changes have happened across the lead journey, because selling a car is not a quick decision, it takes time. There are consumers who might be willing to sell it in a hurry, but there are consumers who take their own time, and usually 3 to 4 days on an average they do take to even decide on selling that car. So this entire journey getting captured over there, and we look at the entire end-to-end integration or end-to-end experience to be seamless. That's where we are looking at not just start of the funnel where we are getting the customers, but also moving it till the end, with wherein the payment is being made. uh, LeadSquare has been able to seamlessly help us in integrating with all the payment gateways and get those payments also done through. Uh, so the entire the current customer life cycle that we've been managing on LeadSquare, uh, the bigger advantage that we've seen over here is the flexibility to accommodate all kind of use cases, and that is one of the bigger things, because this being a new market, a lot of experimentation happens. We also don't know what is the right solution. We might want to try out 3 4 different solutions for the same problem, and that's where we are able to experiment a lot on those, and then finalize on one particular flow, and then move on to the next problem statement to solve through. And that flexibility is something that we are getting from LeadSquare in terms of implementing those complex solutions the way we want it to. uh, so that's broadly how the overall CRM and the workflow management at OLX Autos is supported very strongly by LeadSquare, and we are able to map and manage the entire lead journey on LeadSquare itself.
That's really great to hear, and thank you so much for these kind words. I think it's always very motivating for us when people like you come forward and kind of tell us about the value we are bringing onto the platform for you guys. Just want to understand a couple of things more, Rohit, from you. I think, as you mentioned, the expansion and the potential of this market is immense. So, where is OLX Autos right now in the scheme of things as compared to capturing the Indian market, and where do you see yourself probably 2 years down the line in terms of the expansion plans that you might be having?
So over the last few years, we've focused a lot on going deep into the existing markets that are existing cities that we are present in, and that's been the case for us globally as well. In whichever cities that we are present in, we are going deeper into that to have a strong foothold and gain the maximum market share out of them. And that journey continues as of now as we speak. And in India also, the market is quite concentrated in certain of the key metros. And when I talk about the top 6 cities or top 8 cities in the Indian market, they almost corner 80% of our business right now. So going forward, the key focus is to strengthen our position in these markets, go deeper, get more customers, and have a larger share of the pie in these markets. But beyond that, we are also looking at being the one-stop solution or one-stop answer for anything that is related to a car transaction. So when you think about a car transaction and whoever be the buyer or the seller, we would like to be that platform that is enabling that transaction to happen, and we are moving towards that vision slowly, and that's what the plan is for the next few years. That we build a technology stack, we build a overall platform which is able to enable any kind of uh, used car transaction in the country, in the globe. Uh, there's a lot of focus in the coming weeks and months, and let's say in the coming years also, on improving the customer experience in the market, because now that we have strengthened a lot and understood the market in terms of the sales, in terms of how the operational problems can be solved, the next key focus for us would be to further improve. While the customer experience has been good so far, we would want it to move further notches above from where it is right now, and that is another key focus that we might be looking into. And beyond that, also being a global organization, we have a lot of learnings and standardizations going around the overall organization itself, wherein we are present in multiple geographies across the world, on how we can be able to leverage on each other and improve each of the markets' technology, and not just that, but also how to solve the problems which could be a problem in this market. Is the solution something which is applicable in the other markets as well? We'll be looking into
Mm.
those as well, and that would mean more closer coordination between the different geographies and market, more coordination with the product and technology teams, and more problem solving which can be expanded into the larger geographies. So we'll be focusing a lot on those and pick up on those learnings and implement into each of those markets. So that's more or less a bigger, if you ask me what the focus is for the next few years for OLX Autos.
Great. So just curious to know whether this Indian market business that you have for OLX Autos, across all the other businesses that you have across the geographies, where is it placed in terms of, is it the largest, second largest, or how will you place the Indian business as compared to your other global counterparts?
So we're definitely a bigger, and I would say the larger chunk of the business at this point of time, considering the volumes in India is quite high. And it's definitely poised to grow even further. So in the global scheme of things, in the current geographies that we are present in, yes, it's one of the larger and the sizable segment that we're talking about for the Indian market. Yes.
Great, great. And also, I think you stressed a lot about the customer experience, not talking from let's say, an acquisition perspective, which you have, already explained, but from an experience perspective, or let's say from a post-sales perspective experience. What do you think is making you different as compared to, traditional, unorganized player or other players who are out there in the market?
Right. So if you look at the earlier, C2C market or how the market earlier was, they definitely, one big problem that we were able to solve was the trust deficit that was there, especially when you're dealing with hundreds of customers who want to buy your car. We bought in a common platform where you don't have any hassle. You just come and sell your car and go, and we'll take care of the entire sell part of it to the next customer. Uh, that also, and beyond that, there's this trust factor wherein we have evaluated your car and we are getting you the best price in the market because we are actually reaching out to a larger segment of dealers.
Correct.
And that would mean that we have access to not just the right tools and technology, but also the right set of buyers for your car who might be able to give you the best car. So today, if you are in one part of the city, the best you can do is go to 5 or 6 dealerships nearby to your home. At best, another location or some known dealership in the city you might be going to. But still, that does not guarantee that the price that you're getting is the best one. What we're doing is that we are opening your car for the sellers across the country and whoever is able to give you the best price, irrespective of where your car is registered. So it can also be a car which is Delhi registered and it's right now you're sitting in Bangalore, and we will be able to enable that sale as well without any other hassles. So we are able to solve that big pain point. That is one of the first things. The other bigger headache that's there in the Indian market is about ensuring that the RC of the
Correct.
car is getting transferred, and that's one of the bigger pain points. And it takes, depending on the market, it can take any amount of time from 1 month to even 6 months or more. So until that time, the customer should not be hassled, should not be worried about his or her car not being sold. So we ensure that this is owned by us. So any questions on the status of the car, everything is handled by us, and that is one key focus on the experience part. The and beyond that, I mean, we also look at how it can be made better. If you have seen the current news also, wherein the used car uh, dealer will be becoming the intermittent owner for the car. That is also solving a part of the problem. So policies, that is policy interventions, is also helping solve a bigger part of this problem. Uh, so that is more or less broadly how we are looking at the customer experience overall, and what we are looking at and ensuring is that the customers who are transacting with us, who are dealing with us, are getting the best value out of this transaction that they are doing. So sorry, Archit, I don't see your.
Sorry, I think
So I think one question that is there in my mind, I think that would probably be the concluding question. I now see nowadays, a lot of OEMs are venturing out in the space.
Right.
Hyundai has come up with their brands. Hyundai have their own brands. Even whenever you go and buy, a car, a new car, they have a specialized unit who is kind of, trying to purchase your used car back
Right.
now. So as compared to these factors, and as you rightly mentioned, trust is one of those factors which comes in where we, a lot of these aggregators are kind of marketplaces are coming in. Where do you see yourself against these brands, OEM brands, who are now venturing out into this market as well?
So the OEMs have been there even before us, and we know some of the big players have been there in the market for quite a while, and they do give the brand assurance in terms of the trust that it is able to give to the consumers. Uh, but the biggest advantage on our side, as I mentioned earlier, also is about the technology that we are able to use and leverage uh, our global scale in terms of the learnings, and not just the learning but also the technology implementation that we are able to do at the scale. And lastly, our the way we are managing and handling the larger dealer market in terms of the relationships and the transparency that we are bringing to the customer. These are all major differentiators that help us move faster with any kind of competition. And when I say competition, the larger one is, of course, these OEM players who are getting into this. Having said that, the market is quite large for any one player to be owning it end to end. There's enough space for more and more players, and it all eventually boils down to parameters like how good they are in their technology stack, how good is their customer experience pre and post sales both, and how they're able to, how quickly, what best price they're able to give to the customer, and how quickly they're able to turn around the whole sale. So all of these factors are a function of the organization's not just skill but also experience in this market, and that's where we are able to leverage a lot, considering our deeper experience in the overall classified market as well as the used car market in the last few years.
That's pretty insightful. I think that brings me and my questions to a halt. But thank you so much, Rohit, for joining us today. I think it was really insightful. It's one of the first sessions that we had on this space, on this specific sector. And thank you so much for sharing your insights, Kartika. I mean, we would be happy to look
Yes.
at any questions that the audience might have for Rohit and us.
Definitely. I see a couple of questions already, but yes, to the audience again, keep it coming. We have some more time to take up the questions. All right. So the first question is from Mr. Abhishek. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Okay. He asks, "Hi, how organized is the second-hand market? Can you throw some light on organized or unorganized breakup? Thank you."
Okay, so on the two-wheeler side, yes, the market is quite large. If you ask me, of all the vehicles on the road today in the Indian market, 80% of them are two-wheelers. And if you ask me about commercial passenger vehicles or cars, the segment that we are dealing in, it's barely 12 to 15% and not more than that. And I'm excluding taxis right now, which are part of commercial vehicles that we talk about. So two-wheelers definitely is a large segment, but that is also a very low margin and high volume segment. So the same manpower that I might be using for working on a car versus the one I'm working on a two-wheeler, the margins and the revenues might be much lesser, which would mean a higher effort out there. Having said that, it's not that the market does not exist or it's not a market worth exploring, but at the point of time right now we are more focused on the four-wheeler market only, and that is where the current growth and revenues are currently focused on. I missed out the other part of the question.
So it was about the organized manner of the second-hand
Right,
market.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. So, for the organized market, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, it was somewhere around 10% of the market was managed by the organized player. When I say organized player, it's dealerships and marketplace players. And unorganized was a larger chunk, close to 60%, and classifieds, which is C2C, and transaction happening on OLX.com, that used to be around 40% of the overall market share. But now the organized player is slowly increasing, and a lot of that comes into the consumer behavior itself, where they want a more trusted player doing this transaction. uh, Currently it stands around 20% share from the organized market, and which actually shows that there's a good amount of growth that can still be done. The estimates are that in the next 5 years, 50% of this market will be actually captured by the organized players, and we will see less and less unorganized players. When I say unorganized player, we're talking about brokers, agents, and small outlets who might be dealing with one or two cars. These kinds going down, and we'll see more and more of these organized players coming into the picture, which includes your OEMs and other dealerships as well. And of course, classified will also go down to below 20%.
All right. Abhishek, I hope that answers your question. But we have one more from Abhishek. And the second question he's asked is Rohit, you had mentioned 6% CAGR for used car market. Can you say the time period for that CAGR?
So when I said 6% for the used car, that is around between 2016 to 2021, and this is expected to go to 12 to 15% in the next 5 years. And this is for the used car market.
All right. Um So yes, I hope that answers your question again. We have another question from Mr. Ravi Shankar. He asked for used car dealers who refurbish and sell cars. How does one pay the GST? Okay.
How does one pay the GST? I mean, that's entirely on the financial side of it. I may not be able to give a deeper insight into that, but all I can say is that currently on any used car that we are selling, the dealers, the way they are refurbishing this, they add somewhere around 10 to 12% of the value of that car into refurbishing the car and making it sell worthy to the next customer. So when you're looking at selling to the next customer, the used car should not be looking like a used car, obviously. So the smaller changes, scratches, dents, and other things inside the car, which can make it look as good as new, that contributes to anywhere between 10 to 12% of the the cost of the car. That is what we call as refurbishment cost, and then the transaction further happens. So I'm not very clear on the GST part of it right now. Sorry.
All right. We have another question from Mr. Shreyansh. Sorry, again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Hi, Rohit. My question is, do you think that small used car dealers will eventually die out since market will become more transparent?
Um, in a way, again, that depends. As the organized players are increasing, their expertise also grows, and we will actually see a lot of consolidation happening in the market, which would mean that yes, the long tail might, which is, and we already seen that in the last few years also. The much smaller dealers are eventually moving on to other businesses because to sustain this in this market, you need to be highly competitive. You'll be needing to get the right breadth and depth of cars. So it's not just about the number of brands and models that you have, uh, but also what kind of variants of that same brand and model that you're able to service, and that would definitely need more muscle power in terms of the capital that you're investing into this. So yes, I won't say with the definite yes that they'll die out. There will still be some small players present, but yes, their share in the market will definitely be going down, and more, as I mentioned, around 50% of the share will move into the organized players eventually. I hope that
All
answers.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shreyans, I hope that answers your question. We have another question from Mr. Rahul. He asks, what's the used car industry size? How much is catered by OEMs? Assuming balance will be unorganized, what is OLX market share in this?
Okay. Uh, so I can give part of the answer, which is about the number of the used cars that are being sold right now stands at around 4.5 million units of used car versus around 3 million for new cars. Now, within this, I may not have a definite split right now of how much is it from OEMs and how much is it from the other players. But at this point of time, also, let's say the size of the OEMs in this pie is comparatively lesser than the organized player, but definitely not something that can be ignored. And also, they do have plans of scaling this up further with use of technology in the coming few years. So not having the definite numbers at this point of time, except for the numbers on what is the size of the market. Yes, it's definitely higher than the new car market for sure. By the next 5 years, you can expect this to hit around 8 to 9 million units of used car, versus the other market, which is actually not growing at that pace.
All right. I have another question from Rahul, but again, I'm not sure what it is exactly. But yes, I'm just going to put it up on the screen so that the speakers can also see. He asks, for 2W, are you as organized as cars or not yet entered the full throttle?
Two wheelers basically for the bike. So as
Okay,
I
two-wheelers. All
mentioned,
right.
so our two
Yes.
wheelers still, we are going by the uh, classified platform, as I mentioned, which is the C2C mode of selling. So on OLX.com, you can still list your used motorbike or two-wheeler, scooty, whichever it is, and sell it. But we have not entered into the what I call the more organized C2B space, wherein we are enabling the transaction to happen. Not yet. Uh, can't say much about the plans for the future, but as of now, this segment is still served by the classifieds vertical only, wherein it's completely C2C.
All right. I hope that answers your question, Rahul. Now there's one more question from Shreyans. He asks, "What is your future move? More focus on online or offline?"
If you mean online, by online, if you mean classifieds, which is OLX.com, versus offline, if it is about OLX autos, definitely there's more focus on the offline one right now, because that is where the whole growth is, and that's where the real problem of the consumer is getting solved. Uh, and that's also the reason why offline actually grew or came into existence, because there were a lot of hassles in the online segment. So we won't lose focus on the online part, because that will still continue to be there. And in fact, a lot of our dealers who might have purchased car from our platform use the online platform to further reach out to buyers downstream pan India. And for that reason, maybe the nature of transaction, maybe the way the platforms are being used, that might see a slight change. But definitely it's not something that is going out of focus anytime soon. We'll continue investing in classifieds, we'll continue focusing there. But yes, the larger focus, the larger problem solving, and the largest chunk of business will start driving in from the offline vertical only.
All right. I hope that answers the question. Uh, okay, now we have another question from Mr. Ravishankar. It is again related to the GST. He's asked, on Mr. Rohit, the GST on the value add is a big impediment for the bottom line. As a large player, have you made any proposals to the government of India on bringing the rates down?
I believe there was a recent change, if I recall it correctly. I'm not able to actually recall the number, but there was recently change in the overall GST that was there on the car, on the used car itself. So if you are talking about the GST rate on used car, it earlier used to be 28%. Now it has come down to 12 to 18%. So that itself is one of the key drivers that has happened in this market. As far as the lobbying with the government goes, we or the overall all the players, they do it regularly. And the recent one you might have seen was related to the ownership of a car. So this was one big hassle before the RC transfer happens, and that change has recently been notified, wherein if you have sold a car, the dealer who has purchased will become the intermediate owner unless the new owner is found out, so that you don't have to change owners of the car in the interim period of 1 month to 6 months, whatever it is. But to specifically answer your the question on the GST part, yes, it has already been reduced, and those kind of lobbying regularly happens with the government.
All right. I hope that answers the question. I don't see any more questions coming up. Um, Okay, yeah, there is one more actually. Rahul asks again, users are in tier 2 and 3 towns. What is your penetration at the district level?
So, as I mentioned in the earlier part of the conversation, that a lot of demand is being driven by the non-metro cities, the tier 2, tier 3 cities, while a lot of supply is coming in from the tier 1 cities, which are the largest cities, the metros for that matter. So we don't have a presence in terms of buy and sell in those markets right now, but definitely our dealerships who pick up the car. So let's say a dealer is picking up a car from a seller in Bangalore. which is one of the larger markets. Uh, for the dealer to sell that car, there are a lot of smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities within Karnataka or the other states that he has picked up the car from and sell it off in those smaller cities. Uh, the dealer market, yes, it exists. The consumer wants to buy those cars, yes, it exists. But our presence right now in that market, it's not there because of the lower volumes right now in terms of people who want to sell. Why? Because the supply of it is primarily concentrated in the metro part of it, and that's where our presence is stronger. So our presence is more there where the supply side is stronger. Eventually, when we become the one-stop point for buying and selling both, there might be more penetration to the smaller cities, but not at this point of time. Hope that
All
answers.
right. Yes. I hope that answers the question, Rahul. All right. I think with that, we can actually conclude our question answering session as well. Any closing remarks, Rohit, Archit?
I think I would just want to thank Rohit. I think he, first of all, it's month end for him. He was kind enough to kind of take out the time and share his thoughts and experience with the audience. And thank you to the audience as well, who has been patiently attending this session and have been very interactive in terms of the questions that have been posted.
Yes, Rohit.
Thanks a lot for inviting me to this forum. It was interesting and it was quite good. My pleasure talking to the larger audience out here and taking out those questions. More importantly, I was able to bring a lot of focus into this market and share my experience and tidbits around the market. Uh, in the coming years, definitely you'll be hearing more and more on the used car space and a lot of involvement of OLX autos in the space as we tend to solve more problems around buying and selling of used cars. And we'll be focusing more and more on being the one-stop destination for anything that you think of when it comes to buying or selling a car. And that is what the future outlook is. That is where we are moving forward to, and that is what we're looking forward to also. So thanks a lot again. Thanks for setting up this conversation. It was my pleasure interacting with the audience here.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Thank you, Archit, and thanks to the audience as well. And I know that a lot of our audience couldn't attend because of Navaratri that's going on. So, to all of those people and to all the audience that have already attended the session, we will be sharing the recording with you soon after the session. So, yes, please do tune into more sessions. We'll have more automotive sessions, and hopefully, we'll get to host Rohit again if he's free and available. Yes, thanks again, Archit and Rohit. It was a wonderful session. I got to learn a lot about the used car industry. And yes, thank you so much to the audience as well. Okay, with that, we'll conclude the session today. Thanks again, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kartika. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Bye,
so
Rohit.
much.
Thank you.